You ever look at a big institution, a church, a university, maybe even a part of the government, and just get this feeling that something is off? Like, on the surface, everything looks great, but deep down, it's lost its soul. Well, today, we're diving into a really interesting framework that's built to diagnose that exact problem. It's called the doctrine of jurisdictional alignment, and it's less of a philosophy and more like a forensic toolkit for checking on an institution's health. Okay, let's get into it.
I mean, that's the big question, right? It's so tricky. An institution can have all the right stuff, the beautiful buildings, the growing numbers, plenty of money in the bank, but inside, it could be completely hollow, totally cut off from why it was started in the first place. So how do you get past just a gut feeling and actually prove, objectively, that this kind of decay is happening?
The source material we're looking at today lays out a whole system for doing just that. Now, just to be clear, our goal here isn't to convince you to adopt this doctrine. Think of it more like we're examining a fascinating conceptual model. We're using it as a unique lens to investigate that huge question of institutional integrity.
Okay, so to get this investigation started, we've got to set the scene. You could almost say we need to establish the crime scene. We're looking at what this doctrine says happens when an institution looks perfectly healthy on the outside, but is actually rotting from the inside out.
So the specific problem this framework zeroes in on is when institutions, especially ones that have a moral or even a divine mission, become, and I love this phrase, functionally insolvent. That's powerful, isn't it? It means they look totally prosperous, but they're no longer doing the one job they were created to do. The real challenge, then, is figuring out a consistent, reliable way to measure that internal collapse.
So how do we actually run this diagnostic? Well, the doctrine comes with its own very specific, very unique vocabulary. You really have to think of these terms like specialized tools in a forensic kit. And trust me, understanding these tools is absolutely essential to getting a handle on the whole process.
First up, we have the origin. This is the absolute non-negotiable starting point. It's defined as the ultimate source of authority, the place where an institution gets its legitimacy and its core mission. So, for a religious group, the origin could be a sacred text. For a country, it might be its founding constitution. Everything has to flow from this point.
Next up is the orbital. Now, this is any institution, any system that gets its purpose from the origin. And here's the crucial part. This is a big deal in the doctrine. The orbital is only a licensee. It's basically a trustee of the original mission. It does not own it. A local church is an orbital. A university is an orbital. It only exists to carry out the origin's mandate.
So what exactly is that mandate? The doctrine has a cool name for it: radiance. Think of this as the pure, high-frequency signal coming directly from the origin. It's the core truth, the uncorrupted mission statement, the essential information that the orbital was built to protect and transmit. It's the message itself, pure and simple.
And finally, to complete our toolkit, we have the wedge. This is our main diagnostic tool. So what is it? The wedge is simply the act of taking that original mandate, that pure radiance, and applying it directly to how the institution, the orbital, is operating right now, just to see what happens. This is the test.
So, with these tools in hand, we're measuring 4 key things. First, radiance. Is that original signal even there anymore? Second, friction. How does the system react when you test it? Third, we have density. What is it actually producing in the real world, like money and property? And fourth, limit. Does the system even play by its own founding rules?
All right, we've got our forensic kit, we know our key metrics. Now let's see how this test actually plays out in the real world. This is where the theory gets put into motion and we start looking for some hard evidence.
The process itself sounds deceptively simple. It all starts when the wedge, that diagnostic logic from the original mission, is applied straight to the orbital, the institution we're looking at. You're basically holding up the institution's own founding charter and asking a very direct question: hey, are you still aligned with this?
And the main piece of evidence you're looking for here is something called friction. What's so interesting is how the doctrine defines this. Friction isn't just a disagreement or a debate. It's described as an empirical, kinetic resistance. It's presented as objective proof of a deep structural problem, a fundamental mismatch between what an institution is and what it claims to be.
And this chart just lays it out perfectly. It shows the 2 possible outcomes of the test. A healthy, aligned orbital, it's going to have low friction and high radiance. It welcomes its own mission. But a misaligned orbital? Whoa! That's where you get high friction and almost no radiance. It actively fights against its own founding principles, an act that the doctrine calls a fiduciary breach.
Now, this is maybe the most crucial point of the whole thing. According to the source material, the test itself, the wedge, isn't what's causing the conflict. The friction is an involuntary reaction from the system itself. It's just revealing a problem that was already there. The diagnostic tool doesn't break anything, it just shines a light on what's already broken.
Okay, so after you've run the test and you've seen the reaction, we get to the final stage of our little investigation, delivering the verdict. And I have to say, the language the doctrine uses here is incredibly vivid and honestly, pretty chilling. So if an institution consistently shows high friction whenever it's tested, it's said to have entered a state of functional entropy. This is basically the definition of terminal decay. It means that 100% of the system's energy is now spent on just preserving itself, its budgets, its reputation, its power structure, and there is 0% left over for its actual original mission.
And this state leads to the most jarring label in the entire framework, the zombie orbital. A zombie orbital has high density. It's got the buildings, the cash, the people, the influence, but it has zero radiance. The signal is dead. It is physically present. It looks alive, but its mission is gone. It is, to use that amazing term again, functionally insolvent.
The doctrine also points to specific behaviors as clear signs of the zombie state. First, something called procedural suppression. This is when the system, instead of dealing with the facts being presented, just attacks the person bringing them up, labeling them unstable or divisive or a troublemaker, anything to avoid the truth. Second, fraudulent inducement. This is when the institution keeps asking for your money, your time, and your loyalty, all while hiding just how far it's drifted from its own charter. And third, and this one is fascinating, universal approval. The doctrine suggests that when an institution that's supposed to be challenging and different is loved and praised by everyone, it's a pretty good sign it doesn't really stand for anything anymore.
And the final verdict, the absolute point of no return, is called the Ichabod verdict. This is when an institution's rejection of its own mission becomes total. The doctrine says that at this point, the origin officially revokes its license to operate. The connection is severed. The institution might keep going physically, for years, but its foundational authority, its very reason to exist, is gone.
And that brings us to the end. This whole forensic framework really leaves us with one huge, lingering question. It forces us to ask what really makes an institution valuable. Is it the stuff you can see, what the doctrine calls density, or is it the faithfulness to that invisible foundational signal it was created to carry, its radiance? That's definitely something to think about.